Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing okay. This week is another Journal With Me episode. I think it's been a little while, so obviously standard disclaimer I guess applies if you want to mute me and just use the video for body doubling, or if you want to listen and not watch the video, either is fine, whatever you want. Basically it's kind of long this time around. I don't have too much to talk about, I don't think, so I'm just going to answer some questions from you guys. I put this up on my community page a couple of days ago. So if you didn't see it, that's always a place, I guess, to kind of like lightly keep an eye on. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was this order I got from Nicole Josephine. If you know my work, you should know her work probably. I feel like we move in similar circles. I ordered these brass page markers, which are really beautiful. I'm really excited about them. And she sent me some stickers as well, so thank you if you're watching. Super cool, really beautiful work. The details in her work is literally just like chef's kiss, and the warm colour palette is really lovely. This year she also released her own planner. It's called the Forest Planner and it's really cool. I didn't get it because I have been moving around too much. I wouldn't want to start something like that and not finish it, I guess, but you should definitely check it out if it sounds like something you might be interested in. If I remember correctly, there are like little foresty illustrations throughout, things like leaves and acorns, and it's really cool. She also made a bunch of accessories to go with it, and you can buy those separately or for it, and it's like things like font stickers and stuff, so it's pretty sick. I'm not sure that was the most efficient shout out, but definitely have a look, basically. If you can hear my voice cracking a little bit, it is because I'm still like lightly sick. I'm like most of the way there. But for some reason, now that I have to record audio, obviously my throat is like, what if we didn't? So just bear with me a bit. In this video you will see me catching up kind of on some pages in my file of facts. I'm still in there. I made a sort of 2024 divider, so you'll see me cut that out. I did it on Procreate, and I will put it in the shop for by the time you're watching this video. I'll make it for personal size file of facts and as an A6 printout, like a postcard. I don't want to make like an A5 one just because the sizing would be wrong. I drew it at file of facts personal size. I'm not sure if that was a bit of a questionable move or not, but it's kind of fun to use some of the pages like a sketchbook, I guess. So it works to be resized for A6, so I'll include that, but those are the two sizes basically. I'm really happy with it. I think it's kind of cute, and there's some text on there from a Tumblr text post. It's like a throwback to a bunch of quotes that go around all year on Tumblr, and I thought it was kind of neat. So after that, I think I work on a book review page. I was filling in the book review for In the Dark Room by Brian Dillon. I feel like all I have done for the last 4 months is talk about that book on here, but I finally finished it like mid to late December, and I did really enjoy it, so I wanted to take the time to like proper commit the review, I guess, to one of my notebooks. It's nice to take the time and sort of reflect a few weeks later about what I really enjoyed about it and which bits are like really sticking with me, which honestly is quite a lot of it. It's nice to reflect on the themes and how he linked them together throughout the chapters. So you'll see me do that. And then after that, I just do some like general maintenance. I was filling out some trackers and stuff, and then I went back and added index dots to all the pages because I downsized to the 5mm Stalogy dots. Previously I'd been using the 8mm, I think, but I accidentally made the pages on these inserts like a bit smaller, so the grids are smaller, so the dots don't fit in the same way. And they were like ever so slightly too big for the space, the 8mm ones. So I downsized to 5, which I think is nice because I think they look neater. Obviously my writing is tiny anyway, so I think it is like a better visual balance in the end. But there we go. It took me a while to track them down, actually. I had to order from 2 different shops to get both colours. But otherwise the index system is working the same as it always has. Nothing has changed. I think that's kind of what you see me do. If there's anything I've missed, I'll like flag it while we're talking, but that's kind of the overview of the general video. I'm like organizing pages, so gluing, printing, cutting, and then hole punching, and then just filling stuff out over a long period of time. So that's the agenda, I guess, for visuals. I do have some questions. I'm just unlocking my iPad. So I won't say who asked them because I hate trying to read screen names. You never know if it's an actual name or if it's just a bunch of numbers and letters. So thank you to everyone who asked one. Hopefully you'll recognise your questions. I have a shortish, well, it's kind of long list, and I'll just work through as many as I can in the time that we have. We have around 30 minutes, so depending on how much I can organise my thoughts, hopefully things won't be too bad. So the first one is kind of topical. Someone said, Happy New Year. If you feel comfortable sharing, what are some of your goals for this year? And I am not really someone who sets too many goals. I've talked before about having kind of a difficult time with existing sometimes, if you catch my drift. Especially when I was younger, I had a really hard time for a while there. And I feel like when you feel that way to the extreme, it almost like it does something to your brain. I don't know. I don't want to be really negative and moody to start it off, but something in my brain kind of changed. I feel like it flipped some sort of switch. I don't know. So I have a hard time with things like goal setting. I feel quite triggered by the idea of planning a future, if that makes sense. So I don't set like hard goals. I'm not like a 5-year plan person. I have vague things I would like to do, but I try not to be really rigid about it, and I try not to think about it too hard. It's just a slippery slope for me on a personal level. Having said that, I have some small goals for this year, things like continuing to listen to and buy CDs, and my iPod as well. I also still use that. That was something last year that I really loved, so I would like to carry that over, I guess, and continue like investing and appreciating that hobby. I would like to not buy any more planners, which you might be thinking like, yeah, okay. But at the moment I have this Filofax, and I have the Avec books for this year now. And I also have the Hon book still. So that's 3 systems I can move between if I need to. And so my biggest goal, I think, is just to not buy any more planners. I kind of have everything I could need to branch out into different areas again if I want to do that. I would like to not do that, but I especially do not want to spend money on planners. So that's kind of like one of my goals, is to either stick with this system, the Filofax, or to use the Avec books. I am kind of undecided still on whether or not to rehome my 2024 Black Gingham Hon. I haven't decided still. I think I would do it if it wasn't so pretty. It's the fact that it's the Black Gingham one. I'm like, what if I panic in like October next year and I want it? Do you know what I mean? Which is kind of, it feels silly. But to have both the Filofax, the Hon, and the Avec books feels like a good security blanket, if that makes any sense. And so I do feel kind of stuck with it. But I figure there's not really too much of a rush. Hobonichi stuff is rehomed relatively easy all year round. There's always someone waiting to try something out. So it's not super, super precious timing-wise. But yeah. The other thing I would like to do is maybe go on holiday. I'm not someone who grew up travelling abroad very much. I only really travelled to Wales. And then I guess a bit around the UK, but not too much. And that was like later. As a kid, we didn't really travel at all, and I haven't been abroad a lot, so I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and I think we might do like a long weekend city break kind of thing in Europe. I think it would be fun. I won't say where yet, because I don't know if we're going to do it or not, and there's no point in like jinxing it in advance, but I would like to go away somewhere and to see something new. It would be cool to film somewhere new, to take photos of somewhere new, to experience somewhere new, and maybe to eat some really good cinnamon buns. So that's kind of a hope. And then the only other goal really is that my dad and I are trying to move back to Wales still. We've been talking about that for a couple of years now. It's just hard because the UK has housing issues and it's short. So there's just nowhere to rent, basically. It's hard work. But that is a goal we have for kind of by the summer, hopefully, ideally. But this year we really want to work hard to make it happen. We've kind of been saving a lot of money the last couple of years in an effort to make it easier, and I guess now we're kind of at like we're going to have to do it at some point. It would be good if it was soon, so we're trying. I think those are kind of the goals. It's just save money, move, maybe go on holiday, and stop buying planners, because I did enough of that last year for a lifetime, I think. So then I chose mostly planner questions, notebook questions. I got a lot of those, and I think I have some newer subscribers, so I thought it would be nice to go over that stuff. But someone said, I'd be pretty interested in the breakdown of how much of your planner is planning and how much is memory keeping. And if you think the reason you went back to rings was for more of the planning rather than the memory keeping. or if you don't really need planning anymore as much as a place to keep track of what you do to avoid lost time. I picked this because I think it's really interesting. So they mentioned that they think I do a lot of memory keeping in the Hobonichi, and if the reason I went back to rings is because I want to do more planning. And not really. You're right in that I do a lot of memory keeping in the Hobonichi, that is true, but I don't do a lot of planning, generally speaking. It's really just having those running weekly to-do lists and a calendar. That's kind of all I need. The nature of being the world's sleepiest girl is that I don't plan very strictly. I have certain things I need to get done in a week, but I do them at my own pace, kind of when I feel inclined, because there's no point trying to schedule stuff. My body just does not cooperate with that. I am not really well enough to work on a set schedule or time frame, so it's mostly, as you say, I think it's mostly keeping track of lost time. It's keeping track of the stuff I do. It's more of like logging the things I get up to when I've done them, rather than trying to plan things in advance. So in the Filofax now, it's a combination of keeping track of those things, the things that I'm doing, and memory keeping and stuff, and small journal entries, and then like light planning, keeping track of, it's not even planning, is it? It's like task logging, if that makes more sense. It's doing it after the fact, or writing a reference list and then updating it as I go. So I am doing some of that, but it's still just a weekly to-do list. You can see it later on in the video. It's the exact same format as I was using in my Hobonichi book. And then it's mostly just things like keeping track of books and sleep stuff, and then just like lightly journaling and memory keeping in between it all. So my Filofax is kind of exactly the same as what I was doing in my Avec books. It's kind of nice, I guess, because I feel like I've really refined my system the last year. So I just kind of shifted the entire practice over, I guess, if that makes sense. So I would say that it's largely memory keeping rather than planning. It's probably 80% memory keeping and like logging of stuff, and then 20% like actual planning maybe. It's definitely more skewed in collecting data to avoid feeling like I've lost time. However that shapes up, which I guess is the nice thing about Filofax this time, is that the pages aren't dated. I did end up making some daily pages just in case I want them, because I'm feeling very involved with my Filofax at the moment. I am finding it kind of a task to upkeep the stuff in my Avec book, just because that's not where my interest is right now, if that makes sense. I am still upkeeping it lightly, making notes and stuff, but I'm more filling out my Filofax. So I drew up a couple of daily pages so that if I want to start logging stuff in my Filofax, I can, and that way the information is still there. And then if I do decide to switch back to the Avec partway through the year, I can do that by referencing the Filofax pages. Obviously, the long-term goal for me all the time, the overarching goal, is always just to lose as little time as possible, to lose as little memory as possible, because that is a problem I have, like, chronically. And that is, like, the root cause of, like, why I do everything I do, is just trying to keep hold of the stuff, because I can't retain anything properly. It's also why I make videos, so yeah, with the Filofax this time, I think I just put everything in it, and then if I need to, I can reference it back again. But definitely more memory keeping than planning. And then someone said, maybe your thoughts on putting everything in one book. I struggle with journaling in my commonplace, or feeling like I need a separate writing only journal. So maybe something about why you enjoy having a great big book of everything, just a thought. And it comes back again to that thing of feeling very involved with one system at a time, or one book at a time. I find it hard to be interested enough, or to feel attached enough, I guess, to multiple books. With my Avec system, it was a bit different because they were the same size and I kept them in the same cover, but that's why I was having such a hard time with finding a cover that could accommodate them both comfortably. It was really important to me that they were kept together, not separately. So, but I do just like having everything in one place, because if it's split up, I feel like I dedicate more time to one than the other. I can't balance them all. I can't stay interested in all of them equally. I always will over-attach, I guess, and overwork in one of them at the detriment of all the others. So it's not something that works for me. I don't think there's more to say to it than that. I just can't do it. It doesn't fit for me. I love having everything in one place as well, so that I can carry everything at once if I want to. And obviously, again, the nice thing with Filofax in that respect is that if you want to take things out and put things in, you can. Like, if you were going to a hospital appointment, you could take just your medical pages. Do you know what I mean? Or you could take medical pages and reading material for the waiting room. It's like you can really customize what you want to carry and when you want to carry it. So I've been trying to find a good archive system this time around to see if I can troubleshoot that final aspect, because I don't know, I'm curious, I guess. As someone who's trying to get into commonplacing in my journaling practice, do you have any advice on where to start? Or like, what's your process in finding inspiration / a topic to journal about it? And how do you go about the process? So I have a list of websites where there's like articles and stuff that I browse regularly. And then I'm mostly looking at the headings and the pictures and stuff. I guess looking for the book covers. I'm like browsing by cover. I have a pretty set series of interests that I browse by. So I like medical stuff, especially if it's to do with sleep or migraines, or headaches in general, I guess, but normally more migraine stuff. So a lot of stuff comes out in The Atlantic about things like that. So I'm always kind of keeping an eye open for those. I like articles about things like nostalgia and old tech, so I look out for those. Unexplained things, conspiracy theories, although less that nowadays because that's getting a bit weird. No longer the fun, I guess, that it used to be. But I look for things like cryptids, or horror stuff. Sometimes you get good articles about the origins of horror or like gothic stuff. But mostly it's just keeping an eye on a series of websites, papers, articles, magazines, and then browsing them regularly so that you can see what's coming out. And then sometimes I'll use the search function and search keywords like, I guess, migraine or sleep. Or sometimes I'll just put Sherlock Holmes in the search bar and see what comes up. You never know when someone's written a cool article about Sherlock Holmes, that kind of thing. And that's kind of how I do it. I used to look at magazines more in person, but recently I found them to be really hit or miss, and obviously they're expensive. In our household, we have Apple News Plus, I think, so you can browse quite a lot on there for free then. You don't need a subscription, and that's how I find a lot of them. The Atlantic is on there, for example. And that way I can browse without having to pay individually for a subscription, hoping it pays off at some point, because I don't like political articles, and a lot of magazines are very politically skewed. The Atlantic especially is very American politics, I guess because it's an American magazine, but thankfully with Apple News Plus it means I'm not paying for it directly, because that would kind of suck, because it's like 80% of what they do. So I like websites like Aeon, is that how you say? AEON. I'll put them in the description, I'll put a few of them, and then you can browse for yourselves. But I find a lot on Aeon, I really like it. They have some really good stuff. I copied one out from there yesterday, I think. So there we go. I hope that kind of explains it. Like, I just have interests and I just keep an eye on stuff. And then someone said, where am I at? Hi Megan, thank you so much for all you share with us. I'm curious how you decide what to track and what not to track on an ongoing basis. That is one of the hardest parts of bookkeeping for me. I'm still a beginner and I feel very overwhelmed by how many things I would like to track or record. And yeah, I get you. So mostly I try to only track the stuff that I'm actively looking back on or that I need reminders for. So on my weekly log, which you'll see shortly, I think, I have habits at the bottom, so I'm tracking those habits. It's not really about logging whether or not I do them. It's more about reminding myself to do them. So my daily habits are things like taking my meds, drinking some water, normally getting some fresh air. Haven't really been very good at that recently, but that kind of thing. It's just stuff that I can forget to do that is really important, so I track those, but it's about reminding. And then the other more practical stuff I'm tracking, I guess, is like sleep stuff, stuff that I might need to reference long term. I also track headache and migraine stuff, again, just because it's good to have those references to hand if you're going to your doctor and they're like, oh, fill out this 6-month sleep graph, and it's like, okay, you fool, I already have it. Like, I already have the data. You can't defer me for 6 weeks, like, I have it. It's just useful to already have that data to back you up, I guess, in a medical setting. And I guess maybe that's why most of my tracking is medical focused. It's just my life, I guess. It's how it's been since I was like 12. The key thing is trying not to track too much, which I know is what you're saying you're having a problem with, and it's easier said than done, but if you're finding it too hard to keep on top of, then you know you have a problem, I guess. So I think it's better to pare down and think like, okay, what do I want to be able to look back on in the future? So for me as well, it's book reviews. I would love to be able to look back and see what I've read and maybe look at the notes I made and stuff. and then obviously habits and health, and that's kind of it. Because otherwise I think you can spend all your time filling out trackers, and I think it's really cool when people do that, but for me personally, I don't think it works. I don't think it's necessary. For me, it's more about memories than it is about like hard data. I guess maybe that's partly a dyscalculia thing again, but I like to look at pictures. I don't like to look at numbers and graphs. So yeah, mostly what I focus on is the memory keeping rather than like a lot and lot of tracking. It's just kind of the bits that I need. So I guess maybe think about if there are habits you forget about that you need to be tracking, things like drinking some water or taking meds and vitamins. Maybe if you're in like school or education, you have assignments to track. That's a good one for people. And maybe again, if there's health stuff, then that could be good too. But every month, I guess, when I'm printing out my pages or when I'm updating my trackers, I think like which ones did I find helpful and which ones are no longer helpful. Every now and then I'll take a break from tracking habits because I just don't need it. Like I just find that I'm just ticking the boxes and I'm not actually referencing it. So it's kind of like an as and when I need it, and then I just drop it and pick it back up. So I guess that's another thing, is that it doesn't have to always be forever. You can pick and choose monthly, like you can change it whenever you want. So just keep, I guess, checking in with yourself and seeing which ones you're using and which ones you're not. Like, which pages are you reaching for is kind of always my question when I'm updating stuff. So hopefully maybe that helps a bit. I've been tracking a lot of the same stuff forever, so I'm not sure I'm even actively choosing anymore, which is exactly not the advice I'm giving you. So somebody said, I'm fairly new here and I'm so curious about how you keep up with so many planners at once, and how do you use each one differently? I've been watching your videos and I've been getting an idea, but it would be nice to hear a side-by-side of how you use each one. So I wanted to answer this one because I think it might be getting confusing for people who are new. I don't use multiple planners. I know it looks like I do. It's just that I had a bit of a, how would you call it? My year was a bit tumultuous. Is that a word? Tumultuous. It was weird, basically, and I moved around a lot. I became obsessed with finding like the perfect system, and then I kept moving book and testing stuff out, and I learned a lot, and it was really cool. But I am a one book person, which I think I've talked about a lot in this video now, but I don't use multiple books. When I'm using a system and you see me change, the likelihood is that I'm not 100% upkeeping the previous one. I get too invested in the new one, in the problem solving aspect of it and the setup and having fun, and then I have to commit to one book. This is also why I'm a one book person. I just can't do it. Like I can't. So yeah, if you're a new viewer and you're looking at all my post history and you're like, wow, that's a lot of notebooks to upkeep. Yeah, you're right. I'm not upkeeping them. Mostly they're in a drawer waiting for when I'm next ready to be interested in them. But I do totally commit myself to one system at a time. And I am having a lot of fun currently in the Filofax. So that is like the one system that I'm currently dedicated to and that I'm using actively, where everything is going. As I say, I am like lightly upkeeping my Avec in the background, but it's getting harder as I'm getting more invested in the Filofax. So then the priority for me then switches and becomes about making sure I have the information to reference if I do want to go back, rather than forcing myself. Especially this time around with Filofax, I'm trying to really like take my time about it and not burn myself out. I think last time I was in Filofax, because I was selling the pages very quickly after making them, and then I was trying to like make a lot of different sizes and stuff, I think I got like a bit burnt out on it. I think I was like burning the candle at both ends for it, if you know what I mean. And then eventually I got so tired that when I saw something else that was interesting and that I could focus on, I was like relieved and I kind of jumped again. So this time I am trying to move a lot slower, and I am like completely dedicated to just this one book right now. So that's the answer, is that I'm not using each one differently. I'm using them all the same, first of all, and then I'm only ever using one at a time. And then the next question is, what do you do when you're in a negative headspace but still need to journal? Do you record the negative thoughts, or do you distract yourself with other things, or do you briefly write the bad stuff but not go into it? Asking because I'm struggling with mental health and don't want to fill my journal with sadness and rage TM, but that just means leaving space of time unrecorded, which I also don't want to do. And I chose this one because it's a very relatable one for me. There was another question that I didn't end up choosing because I went more journal focused, but it was about how I think like disability and ill health has changed me or affects me as a person kind of thing, like how I've grown as a person because of it, that kind of stuff. And I think because of that, I do journal the bad stuff. I spend a lot of my time in a lot of pain. I don't sleep well. I'm like chronically underslept. I have like 14 years now of like chronic sleep deprivation. Like, I am grumpy as hell in real life. I am not like bubbly and fun and cute. I'm like really moody. So I do journal the bad stuff because often I have a lot on my mind and I need to be able to put it somewhere. I was going to therapy, but it's expensive, obviously. And after I was discharged from my therapist when she thought I was doing well enough, I needed somewhere to put that small stuff that builds up. I still needed a space to be able to unload that stuff, I guess. You can't just hold it all in your head all the time, right? Like, my head is so full all the time. I had to find somewhere to put it. So I do journal about it, and I try not to feel too bad. At the end of the day, mental health and physical health, chronic health issues, like the negative stuff, is as much a part of your life, especially if you have mental health issues and depression and stuff, and rage. I also have rage. You have to be able to talk about it. Like, you have to put it somewhere. It's a part of your experience, whether it's a positive or a negative one. And I just think I was doing myself more damage by thinking like the bad stuff is poisoning the book, if you know what I mean. Like, that to me was a toxic mindset I had to try and learn to break out of. The one thing I do try to do to help myself feel better about it is I'll write about what's bothering me and the stuff I'm struggling with. And then I'll try to like clear my mind a bit and I'll think like, what can I do tomorrow to make myself feel better about this stuff? What can I do the rest of this week to try and alleviate some of the pressure? And I think being able to vent and put it on paper, but then proactively think about how you can relieve some of that strain is a nice way to loop it back around and make it not entirely negative. I think it makes things easier to cope with, and then it becomes more of like a supportive space than a negative space, your book, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I do it, and I really feel for you. I get you, because I too am filled with sadness and rage so much that I don't know where to put it some days, and then I just have to remember that like actually I do have somewhere to put it. And if it helps, you could have a separate book just for the negative stuff. When I was young, I would do that. I had these really cheap composition books that I would steal from school, and I would fill them with like all the horrible shit I was going through as a kid, and then I would use a black marker and scribble out like every single word individually, and then at the end of the month or when the book was full, I would set it on fire. So it's like there are things you can do. You could have a dedicated book for the bad shit if you want, if that helps you, and then you could actually ceremonially burn it. It does kind of feel cathartic. Nowadays, thankfully, I think I feel a little bit more level, so no more burning, but I do try to think about it kind of like it's a part of my life whether I want it to be or not, and a lot of the time I don't want it to be, but it is, and it doesn't help me to be angry about it. Like, I have enough to be angry about without adding that on top of it. So hopefully that makes some sort of sense, or that helps a bit, or if it just helps to know that I also have that, like, you're not alone in that. Definitely, it's definitely a thing. And then somebody said, this is a bit of a different one, but I thought it was interesting and I wanted to be honest about it. Someone said, I would be really interested in knowing how you pay your bills, in air quotes. Is YouTube and your illustration shop your only revenues, or do you take up commissions and things like that? I know it's a pretty nosy question, but I dream about making a living through doing what I love, art, but really have no idea how this could possibly be attainable. Ignore me if you prefer your privacy about that. Yeah, so it's the main thing to remember as a freelancer of any kind, especially an art freelancer, is that you have to have multiple income streams at all times. I think the recommended minimum number is 3, but I also think that's old advice and it should probably be more now because they're so unpredictable. You can't depend on just 1 or 2. You have to have multiple backups for your income. So I make money a bit through YouTube. YouTube does not pay a lot. I choose not to take sponsorships, so I don't make money from that, which I think is the bulk of where most YouTubers, especially bigger ones, make their money. I am just not really interested in trying to upsell vitamins to you, to be honest. I think the only one I would ever take is Squarespace, maybe, because I have legitimately been using them for years. Like, I do actually stand Squarespace. But I get so many companies reach out to me and they're selling absolute junk, and I'm how can I actually sit here with a straight face and convince you guys to pay for that? Like, I'm not doing it. So I don't make a lot from YouTube. It's definitely not a minimum wage or anything close to that. It's like pocket money I make from YouTube. My main income is my shop and Patreon. Shout out to all my Patreon supporters while we're here, because literally you are paying my bills. And also I love it as just like a smaller community space to talk to people and hang out and stuff. Like, Patreon is great. I really love Patreon. So most of my income comes from those two, my shop and Patreon. My shop, obviously doing physical stuff for UK customers and digital stuff internationally. And the digital stuff this year has been really fun. If you sell digital products, it's almost a bit like passive income, because you list the files and then hopefully people buy them and then you don't have to ship anything. So it's quite cool. Some days I'm really sick and I don't work physically, and then the next day I'll still have made money from selling like Filofax inserts and stickers and stuff. And as a disabled person, that is literally like, it's insane, you know, it's amazing. My voice is breaking up a little bit, I'm emotional. It's just cool. But I do also think it's really hard. I used to take client work. I got really burnt out doing it, so I took a break, and thankfully at the moment my Patreon and my shop are stable enough with YouTube thrown in there to be able to be choosier about the client work I take. But I found the communication side of that really hard because of being autistic. So I did do a lot of client work for a while. I did some pretty big jobs for clients, but it's a lot for me personally. So the other thing, obviously, is that I live with my dad. I contribute to the household. I pay for all the groceries. And we're both saving money for moving. I'm doing most of the saving for that while he's paying the rent. So I don't live independently, and therefore I'm not funding an independent lifestyle with my income from being a freelance illustrator and everything associated. It's getting increasingly hard, I think. Like, even if I had the savings to move out, I couldn't do it because nowhere would rent me as a freelance illustrator with no partner, like without another person to live with a stable job. Like, I'm just one illustrator, a single income household, and like I can't get a mortgage. Like, nowhere will give me a mortgage. I can't rent. Like, nowhere will do that for me because they don't trust me, because I'm not considered like stable enough. I would have to have like multiple years, like 6 or 7 years or something stupid of stability to prove that I could possibly do it. And even then, I think it would be incredibly hard. And it really depends, I think, on where you live and how much things cost where you live. But for the time being, I'll just be here hanging out in my dad's attic and hoping we're both going to move back to Wales where things are a bit cheaper slightly. So it's kind of like I do make some sort of living and income from illustration and YouTube and everything, but it's a lot of work and I've been at it a long time. That's the other thing, is that I've built my social media presence over like 12 years. I wish I was joking, but I've been on the internet since I was a kid, and it's taken me a long time to get here where it's like actually paying off in any kind of reasonable way. And I don't have advice for starting from scratch because I started 12 years ago. Like, I don't have to start tomorrow. I don't know how to compete with things like TikTok. So it's hard to say. It's like, yes, I am kind of making an income, but it's definitely not something that I could personally live off by myself. If you have a partner, it might be different. If one of you has a stable income, a salary, then it could be different. I'm not sure. I'm not in that situation or that position to be able to say. But that is kind of how it works, I guess. Hope that answers some of your questions about it. It's complicated. It's so weird to make money as a freelancer doing art stuff and internet and social media stuff. Like, it's so, I don't even know how to describe my job anymore. Like, when I go to like Christmas, my family are like, how's work going? What are you working on? And I have to be like, I make videos, I guess. And then sometimes I draw stuff and they're like, okay, and you get paid for that? And it's like, yep, sometimes. So I don't know. And then the final question I have, I don't think I meant to end it here, but I think I forgot to keep looking for questions. I think I got distracted. Someone said, Happy New Year. I know you were talking about trying some different pens. Any updates on that? And this was a brief situation I was talking about on Tumblr. I was doing some market research. I was pooling everyone's favourite pens because I am worried about how do you call it? Unstable nature, I guess, of the erasable pens. Obviously they're heat sensitive. People are telling me every day in my comment section. And I've never had any difficulty. I've never been let down by these pens. They've never failed me. but I do think about it. I do think a lot about, like, do I want my books to be archival, or do I just need them for now? Do I only need to reference them for 3 to 5 years, or do I want them to be around when I'm old? You know, like, it's hard to say, because part of me thinks I don't want people to read my words in a few years, I don't think. So I wouldn't be that gutted if the text started to fade. But then the other part of me thinks if I woke up tomorrow and all the ink was gone, I would be, like, upside down on the ceiling. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd not be okay about it. So for a while I was looking at different pens. I bought a couple to try, some of the most popular ones, some zebra ones, a Uniball one. I think I bought a couple of Uniball ones, and then I got, like, a Parker gel pen as well to try, and it was kind of cool, but they were all so smudgy. And because I've been using the erasable pens for so long, I don't have the patience, I don't think, needed to be able to use a pen that smudges. I was waiting like 3 or 4 minutes and they were still smudging, and I was like, this is not practical. Like, who is using these when they take 6 minutes or something or more to dry? Like, I work too fast for that. It would really stress me out. And if I smudged ink on a page, I'd be, like, angry. I would have to, like, I couldn't live with that. That's not something that I could do and then be like, a smudge is fine. Like, I think I'm too much of a perfectionist about my pages, about my books for that. Like, when light colours smudge, like a grey mild liner, if that smudges, it's okay because it's light coloured. But if it was like a black smear, I'd be, like, not happy. So, to be honest with you, I did a lot of research. I tested a lot of pens. I bought a couple and I tried them out for a bit on test paper and stuff, and different papers and different drying times and blotting paper. I, like, tested it for like 2 weeks, and then I think Christmas started to happen and I just got busy, you know, and then I just put it down and now I'm, like, too intimidated to try again. But it is something that I think about. So no real update at the moment, to be honest with you, but yeah, it's, like, pending, I guess. It is, like, a problem, not a problem, but it is something that I, like, think about in the background all the time. So nothing there, but that's kind of where I got to. Haven't made a decision, basically. And I think that's all of it. I think those are the questions I picked, and I have run out of footage, and I'm just still talking, which is so bad. So I hope that was interesting for you. I hope that cleared up some stuff for newer subscribers, older subscribers, whoever is watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you again next week.